my reporting about the film and start with telling you quickly 10 things you should know about the Teacher's Lounge. I don't have a chalkboard, so you have to remember what I said because there will be a quiz. Just kidding. So number 1, Ilka Katak. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Chatak?
Yes.
Chatak. Thank you. The film's director said he chose to make a movie set in a school because he felt like the school was the perfect microcosm or stand-in for our very divided society today. The film has bosses, stressed out workers, rebellious young people, angry parents, the press stirring the pot, tension over diversity, even crime. With, as he put it in one interview, everybody screaming instead of listening. He also said he decided to have all the action in the film to take place in the school. The camera never goes home with anybody. He said he thought that would increase the stress. He also wanted to keep most of the colors brown and orange. I don't know if you've noticed that in there. And he told his music people to basically, they could only use 3 instruments because he wanted to sort of just up the stress, not make it beautiful. There was a little music at the end, but. Number 2, the director, say it again. Shatak, is the son of Turkish immigrants who settled in Berlin where he was born in 1948. So anybody that knows anything about Germany, and I know a little bit, over the years the growing number of Turks living and working in Germany has sparked some tension. There's even been attacks on them from right-wing and neo-Nazi groups and calls for foreigner-free zones. The director said that when he co-wrote the film, he saw himself in 2 characters. One was Ali and his family, who were profiled. He said he also had been profiled and targeted. He also said he saw himself in Carla, the teacher, the main character, who's originally from Poland, who is very eager to have solidarity with her students, to fit in, and to assimilate. Number 3, we're on a roll here. He co-wrote the movie with Johannes Duker, a former classmate. They bonded in school over movies. Samuel would be interested in this. Johannes had a DVD player and showed his young friend 2001: A Space Odyssey, and they were friends for life. In an interview, he said he and his friend went on a camping trip when they hatched the idea for this film. They remembered at one point that when they were growing up in school, and they were a little older than these kids, but they were frisked, like in one of the early scenes. So they had the germ for their film. 4, and again, these pronunciations, I think it's Liani Benesh, the actress, who plays teacher Carla in the movie, is a German actress who now lives in London. Her first film was The White Ribbon, a much-lauded 2009 German film from director Michael Haneke. Benesh played Eva, a nanny who becomes the fiancée of the village school teacher. You might have recognized her. She's also played a major role in Babylon Berlin, which is a German TV series showing on Netflix. She was in The Crown. She played one of Prince Philip's sisters, I think the Princess of Denmark. And she was in the PBS series Around the World in 80 Days. She played the journalist who covered Phineas Fogg's international adventure. So number 5, there are 23 kids in this movie. None of them were professional actors. The director saw a lot of kids who wanted to be in the film. He said he'd gather 4 to 6 kids at a time and do improv with them. He was the teacher and they had to convince him why they could go to a certain event. The kids who made that cut, next he had them interact with cameras. If they passed that test, then he did personal interviews with them. And he asked, one of the things he asked them is, what do you want to be when you grow up? They said, all of them said actors. And he said, why? Because we want to be rich and famous. Number 6, the Teachers Lounge premiered at the Berlin Film Festival, did well at the German box office for an art film, and swept the German Film Awards called Lola's. It won Best Film, beating out All Quiet on the Western Front. It also won awards for Best Director, Best Screenplay, and Best Actress for Leonie Benesch. It also has a 98% score from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. 7, the Teachers Lounge was Germany's submission to the Oscars, and it made the cut. It's going to be one of 5 films up for Best International Film at next month's Academy Awards. It's up against, is it Io Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, which you saw a trailer of before this film, which will soon have a run here. Society of the Snow from Spain, which is now showing on, I think, Netflix. And probably the favorite is The Zone of Interest, which is also showing here now, set at Auschwitz. It's in German, but it's actually technically a British submission. I'd say the Teachers Lounge is at least a dark horse there, though. I think if anything's going to topple Zone of Interest, it would be this, because it's a pretty intense film, as you probably agree. 8, the director said that one of the other things he tried to do is show how much things have changed for teachers since he was a student. And I think we have some teachers here. He said back then, if a teacher said something, it was gospel, and the parents backed up the teachers. And now, he said, much of what the teachers say is challenged. Just look at what's going on in this country with Moms for Liberty and all the other groups. Kids now have and are more aware of their rights. They put out more kick-ass newspapers, I can tell you that. I mean, when I was in school, we could never have done that. A lot of what they did was questionable, but and teachers are expected to multitask and hope that nobody reports them for anything they say or do. We're almost there. Number 9. We don't really know, I don't think, how much money was stolen from Carla. Oscar brings his savings of 63 euros and 45 cents, which I think is just shy of $68 in US currency, just to give some perspective. And the film's German title, see if I get, Das Lehrerzimmer, means teacher's room, according to my German-born neighbor Udo, who's here with his lovely wife Lisa. And number 10, I saved this one for the last because I think it's pretty interesting and kind of sad. In one interview, the director was asked what kinds of reactions has he been getting from audiences in different countries. And he said the one reaction that has really stood out for him was in the United States. He said, unlike the other countries, many watching the film in the US were sure or feared that somebody was going to pull out a gun and kill somebody else. So, that the tension was just so... Anyway, I'm done with my 10. I'd love to hear from people, reactions, especially from people who have been in the schools. We've got a microphone here, and I've got a couple questions, but I'd love to just hear anybody that wants to speak up. I suspect there's a lot of strong opinions after watching a movie like that. Anybody? Raise your hand. We have a teacher? Yes, we do.
Yeah, I used to work with Stint Observer, but I taught English at Coxwell High School, and you could never tell what the students were going to do. I'll never forget this one kid that came in sniffling and crying at the class hadn't even started yet. And I said, what's wrong? He said, "You don't even know me." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I offered him a Kleenex. Turned out his mom was a principal. And I met her on teacher's night. She said, "Oh no, he really likes you. He rarely says anything to anybody." So, you never know. That's crazy.
Any other teachers or anybody that has an opinion? Right there.
I have a question. I don't understand why she never went to any of her colleagues for anything. She just felt like she had to stiff up her lip.
It's a good question. My thought is that she was so tuned into her students that she wanted, to be on their side. But if somebody has an
She
opinion.
was new, and wasn't it her first semester or something?
Yeah.
Because she was,
I can't hear you real well.
she was a substitute teacher.
Well-
She had just started, so of course, she wanted to.
Right.
She didn't feel like she wanted to go to
She want to make waves.
And she wanted to assimilate, to your point earlier, and she didn't really have colleagues who she had relationships with, so she probably wasn't, she wanted to fit in.
So did the mother steal the money or not?
Well, wait, sorry.
Oh,
Hi,
oh.
everyone. I also think that she just didn't trust her colleagues at all.
Okay.
That you see someone stealing money from the piggy bank jar next to the coffee,
Yeah.
and she doesn't say anything because she doesn't want to make waves.
Yes.
She tells her colleague, who we have to assume might be her romantic partner, we should only speak German when we're at school, because he seems to speak Polish with her. And she saw how the principal reacted when all these parents were speaking in their native tongue. And her colleagues were just annoying, at least through her lens. The curly-haired woman always seemed to want to dissect everything Carla was doing and point out that she was always wrong. And then the other gentleman who assisted in interrogating Ali always seemed to jump to fast conclusions, and then was so upset when he was called out for his unconscious bias and saying, "I'm not a racist, I'm not a racist." But it's like, you cannot be a racist but still do something racially charged, and that's okay. Do I think, to go to your question, do I think that Ms. Kuhn did it? I do. And if she didn't, it's still, why were you touching someone else's property and code? I think that, yes, it's all just kind of coincidental of her wearing the star shirt, but no one else, at least to our knowledge as the viewer, seeing everything from a limited lens through Carla, you don't see anyone else wearing that shirt until what I believed was the high schoolers taking solidarity all kind of marched in and wore the same thing. So,
Or that was his fantasy.
or that was a fantasy. Fair point. I think someone raised their hand though, so I'll stop talking.
Yeah, does everybody agree with her? The mother do it?
Yeah.
No,
Everybody?
I
Yeah.
just have a question. Was the her colleague the one who stole money from the tips?
I think that was someone else.
That was
Someone with
somebody
a
else,
blonde
yeah.
I was
hair, yeah.
confused the whole time. Yeah. All I know, I need to watch this movie again.
It's still playing here.
So,
Can I add
Yeah.
one thing to everything she said?
sure.
The fact that, I don't know if I need that.
Yeah, you need
The
it.
fact
Yeah,
that,
talk
the
about
fact that she set the whole thing up, she took the wallet out of her pocket, she put it in her coat and left it there, checked to see how much money it was, and left. Her computer said to me that she didn't trust. And she was kind of going beyond to try to catch the person. I mean, she set somebody up, and that's what happened, and then the result of it all, But that the trust was setting it up.
Yeah, and it does seem to bring into question of which is more wrong. The fact that she set the stage and knowingly was recording her colleagues, or the fact that there was a colleague stealing things from other staff and faculty.
But if the person hadn't been stealing, she wouldn't have to have done that.
Exactly.
So,
Up there?
I
Yeah.
have a question. Didn't they at the beginning say about stealing 1,000 pencils?
yes.
And you saw that the delivery came, she took the delivery, so you wonder what happened to those 1,000. She's the one that took the.
Right.
Is the
That's
one
a good
that-
point.
Did he have a comment? Did you have a comment, sir?
Yeah, I was, this is a really interesting discussion. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for the commentary. I was really taken by the fact that there's so much protection against observation and such. I've not been a teacher in the public schools in North Carolina, but I can't imagine anybody sort of saying, when you seem to catch a thief red-handed on your video, saying, what right did you have to set that up? The only person who would say that would be the person who was guilty. So I wonder if this is accurate about contemporary Germany, where on the one hand there's a push for what we didn't see in the film, Alternative for Deutschland, the right-wing people who are now a threat to middle of the road conservatives and liberal politics. Or on the other hand, if there's so much concern about the fascist history that they're protecting everybody so nobody can observe.
So we have a person here who was raised in Germany. Udo, what would you like to say?
Yes, and I don't need the mic. I can yell loud enough. Well, this movie clearly was a microcosm of our society. And at one point, I have many things to say, but at one point it crossed my mind, would it be noticeable with regard to such movies to differentiate before the Trump time and the after Trump time, or the current time? Because what was shown there is there's clearly one reality. This blouse. Okay, I understand. Theoretically, other people could have worn such a thing as well, but the way it was defined, no, because it was a teacher's lounge with limited access to, no access to the pupils. So it must have been one of the staff. But again, what fascinated me is that reality obviously is an illusion. So that's what I saw. And again, I wonder, is it noticeable in reflecting our world to notice the difference before Trump and after Trump? False news. My friend used these descriptions of our reality. It's false news. Lock her up. Embarrassing. Sorry.
Well, you use the microphone from just, it helps the cameras and stuff. But I would say in watching interviews with the director, he does make a distinction between what he called the Trump era, which he thinks is, reflected around the world. I mean, we have other rulers around the world who are Trump-like, and he mentions his 2016. He thinks there's been a real change in just the way we all deal with each other. Everything's out in the open. But so what did you think of Carla's judgment and behavior? Because I think we all had sympathy for her and empathy for her, but I wondered, was it smart to videotape that, and was it smart to do an interview with those vulturous reporters? I mean, I think she was a little naive. No?
Yes. As a former teacher, I was really moved by the sense that she was a really wonderful teacher. Empathetic, smart, strong. She was dealing with the situation as well as she could. She cared about the students. She got involved in this terribly complicated situation really because she cared and was taking action. And then it made her life a nightmare. I don't know, that's just a comment.
Well, I think that's part of his point, that the director is you got to be better than a good teacher anymore, because you have to be able to navigate these waters, which legal and ethical and all these other things. And anyway, somebody else?
I think she was right on about that kid. She knew that he needed help and that he did not need to be expelled or punished or singled out in any way. Yeah. And she seemed to get what he was about. And they reached some kind of consensus with each other without saying anything. And the other teachers were just totally oblivious that, they wanted to go by the rules, that let's lock them up, let's send them to jail, let's do whatever. Yeah. But he needed help.
He did hit her in the eye, though. I mean,
Well, there is that.
She understood that because he was so desperate to protect his mother.
Yes, Udo?
Well, like somebody before, I was a little bit puzzled why that teacher set up that trap. But if I remember correctly, before she set up that trap, she saw another associate emptying that piggy thing, right?
Yeah.
So and I believe she thought that she could get that lady on her video thing. But I wanted to say something else. Oh, the Polish lady was also under pressure to assimilate. I think the movie made that clear as well. That's why she didn't want to speak Polish with her associate. And I was thinking back, how was that when I lived in Germany? Well, as you remember, the reunification or the Iron Curtain came down at the end of the 89, right? So, and Lisa, my wife, she studied with some of these Polish people coming over from the east to, well, in this case, Hamburg or West Germany. And I wonder what kind of pressure they felt. I was amazed, by the way, how quickly they learned German. I guess it has something to do with your level of intelligence. Okay, now I'm rambling.
You came from Czechoslovakia? No?
Slovakia.
Or Slovakia, what do you think? No? Okay. Sam?
She's on the spot.
Sam, by the way, Sam teaches film at the UNC Charlotte, and he's going to be doing one of these talkbacks when? When is that?
Next Sunday, Thomasine and Bushride, excellent movie.
You need to come. I've been to a couple of his. He's a lot better than me. Let's put it that way.
That's true. No, I'm just kidding. No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
He is a teacher too.
I was kidding. I just want to, just a few quick random thoughts. First of all, there was a film that came out about 2 years ago, a film from Belgium called Playground. I highly recommend it. It was very similar to this movie, and how it's similar is because the entire movie, just like this movie, took place entirely in the school. So what this gentleman over here said, it's a microcosmic universe. I think the best movies I've ever seen about school take place entirely in the school. I mean, it is a microscopic universe, and even when the kids' parents come for Parents' Day, it seems as if they're interlopers. You know, this is not their territory. The other thing I wanted to say was, I was glad that the film didn't rely on cheap cliches. For example, when she thinks she sees someone walking past her with the same blouse, and then we realize, before I realized that was a scene of a hallucination, I was thinking, oh God, here we go. I mean, I like the fact that it ended, well, I guess it didn't end with ambiguity because we know the kid's mother probably stole it, but I'm glad for some loose ends. I'm glad that it didn't tie it up perfectly with a bow. And the last shot of the kid being taken out by the police, I thought was perfect. I mean, that's the way the movie should end. I found that really, really interesting, and the fact that it didn't give you a Hollywood ending. And I imagine if this were remade, and I'm sure it will be remade by Hollywood, it will have a Hollywood ending.
And there'll be a gun.
But I thought the acting was great, and I thought the kid who solved the Rubik's Cube at the end was incredible. Just his expressions and his eyes, I was just fascinated by.
What did you all think of the ending? Because it was
Perfect.
I thought it was interesting how they carried him out. Because he was at a level real high up in the
King.
police.
He's like a king.
It was almost
It was ironic because he was being carried out like
a king.
royalty,
It was
right?
bizarre.
But it was because the police couldn't, I guess, touch him. I mean, there were rules that we're not so sure about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
Well,
great.
he was defiant, obviously, to the police as well, to
Right.
be carried
Oh,
out
exactly,
like that, you know.
exactly.
I just hope the kid in his life can find the algorithms for his life as well as he did for the Rubik's Cube. If you can solve that, let's solve those problems of the world. You know, come on, can't we do this? The world seems very complicated these days. And
You know, I remember from the interview now, and I think I have this right. None of the kids were professional actors, but it turns out that 2 members of the cast, and I think Miss Kuhn was one of them, came forward and said, you know, my son is interested in being in this movie, and I think her actual son played Oscar. So I think that was truly a mother and son. And there was another kid, and I can't remember which one, who is also a son or daughter of one of the other actors that would already cast. So, yeah, there's been a lot of great. Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't it seem odd when she runs after him and they're on the bridge? It's suddenly like they're outside of the school. It was weird. Like, you know, they left the universe and she's out in his territory.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's been a lot of great school movies. Dead Poet Society, Blackboard Jungle, To Sir with Love, but I think this one is much more subtle and intense. Up to Down Staircase. Who else has something to say? Speaking to the microphone.
I just want to know, in any of your research, was there any subtle or not so subtle mention of the yellow star on the blouse?
Oh, no, I don't remember getting that. So you think there was a subtle Jewish?
Just wondering.
Yeah, but it wasn't 6 pointed, was it? It was 5 pointed. It was a regular star, I think.
Question for Sam.
A question for me.
So, when there will be a remake of this at Hollywood, how is it gonna end?
Gun.
What do you think about that? Gun. All right. School shooting. I don't know.
Go ahead.
I taught for 12 years at the high school level math students, and I never had any honors classes. I had the non-honors, I guess you would say. But it's incredible to me how many of these types of situations occur in a school year.
Yeah.
Just in my class, but when you take all the classes, and if I taught for 12 years, maybe I had 1,200 or 1,500 sets of parents to deal with. And I retired from teaching in 2013, so it was just before the alternate facts universe kind of took over. But you could kind of see that happening. Like, I had one student that, and they tried to get me fired several times because I'm not very politically correct to start with. But I had one student that was sleeping, so I woke up and I just jostled him a little bit to wake up. Next thing I know, they're trying to get me charged with assault. So, you know, things are crazy, and I'm surprised that more of these things don't erupt out of the high school scenario. I rarely saw anything take on this nature, but there were whole lots of things that were just below that going on all the time. And the school administrators, I have to give them credit for finding solutions to get by on all.
What did you think of the administrators' behavior? They all want to get on the same page all the time, you know, right?
Yeah, that was a little unrealistic to me, but I mean, I could understand the idea that they were trying to accomplish, but I never saw the kind of faculty dissension and fussing that went on here.
So everybody thinks it has echoes in the United States, right? I mean, you can see this happen in the United States tomorrow.
I didn't sense that in the movie as far as it being a reflection of what's going on in society at large, but after you mentioned it, yeah.
I mean, that was his purpose, to pick a school.
Well, they mentioned zero tolerance a lot. I felt like that put them under a lot of pressure to be on the same page, to have that zero tolerance policy.
And there was stealing going on even before the movie starts, so that was an issue. Udo.
We wanted to invite the German-American teacher to this performance. Unfortunately, that lady is out of town this weekend, otherwise she would have been here. But describing the movie a little bit to her, she said, well, the same thing in Germany as in America. You have to be careful not to be sued. You have to be very, very, very careful these days. That is not my reality I grew up in, but obviously what they showed there, that is reality, including all the untruthfulness.
So do you think we have imported this to Germany from here? Because this
No, it's the same. It's a phenomenon all over the Western world, I'm sure.
And I think a lot of those student journalists would get fired if they went on, if they didn't change their ways a little bit. But it was great to have the press in there, actually. I thought that was kind of cool. Anybody else? We're going to wrap up here. So what are you going to tell your friends about this movie? Is it a thriller, a whodunit, a social portrait, everything?
See it. It's a must-see movie.
Thumbs up, and everybody want to screen?
Better than Zone of Interest.
Did you have something else? No, okay.
You know, something, may I say one
Yeah,
thing?
sure.
Something very, very basic, but I was really surprised that the culprit was not a pupil, but the parent. I didn't expect that at all. I always waited
Right.
for at one point a pupil to march into that movie, but it never happened. And that's function, of course, as a thief. So I was surprised. That's quite genius.
As
Gail?
far as people seeing it, I think it would be great for people who haven't worked in the schools to see how hard it is to get a teacher, or to be a teacher, because if you say something to a child, it'd be good. If you don't say something to a child, sometimes it's not good. And sometimes what you say to the child is not what the parent thinks you should have said it, but you're trying to, sometimes you have to act so quickly. You can't like think, see, do I want to use this word or that number? You don't have the time to edit your own feelings about exactly what you're trying to say.
I covered education among my many beats over the years, and the difference is, like now in a lot of schools, they actually feed students, right? In the morning. There's a lot of politics, especially now. You go to these school board meetings, and it's like a combat zone. And so I think it's maybe even more intense in the United States. So I'd go to a movie based on the U.S. But thank you all for coming, and please come back and see more and more movies here. The best movies are in town here.